The Grand Galactic Council chamber sparkled with light that bounced off the polished stone walls. It was the biggest room Ambassador Elena Reyes had ever seen, even after 5 years of representing Earth. The circular chamber could hold representatives from all 127 spacefaring species in the Galactic Confederation. Elena sat straight in her chair, trying to hide her frustration. Around her, the 6 other members of the human delegation shuffled their digital tablets and exchanged worried glances. This meeting was not going well. "The human request for equal voting rights is denied," announced High Counselor Zextral, his blue skin wrinkled around his 3 eyes as he looked down from the raised platform. "The Council maintains that humanity is too young and too unpredictable to have the same voting power as the elder races." Elena took a deep breath. This was the 12th time in 5 years that the Council had rejected their proposal. Humanity had been part of the Confederation for 50 years, contributing technology, resources, and military support. Yet they were still treated as second-class members. "High Counselor, with all respect," Elena said, standing up slowly. "Humanity has proven itself repeatedly. Our ships patrol the dangerous borders of Kresh space. Our scientists solved the Araxian crop failure. Our engineers fixed the quantum communication network when no one else could." High Counselor Zextral waved a long-fingered hand dismissively. Yes, humans are quite useful, but the Confederation has existed for 3,000 years. Your species has barely been in space for a century. Patience is required." From across the chamber, Ambassador Kral of the Zeridian stood up. The insect-like alien's voice clicked through the translator. "I must agree with the High Counselor. Humans are useful primates, but hardly worthy of full council privileges. Perhaps in another century they will have matured enough for us to reconsider." Elena felt her face grow hot. The other human delegates looked down, embarrassed at being spoken about as if they were children or pets. Commander Jackson, the military representative in their delegation, leaned over and whispered, "That's the final straw, isn't it?" Elena nodded slightly. They had discussed this possibility. If the Council rejected them again, especially with such disrespect, they would activate Plan Exodus. The human government had approved it 3 months ago, hoping they would never need to use it. Elena took another deep breath and pressed a small button on her wrist device. Back on Earth and all human colonies, the signal was received. Operation Independence was now active. "Ambassador Reyes, do you wish to speak?" asked the High Counselor, noticing her standing posture. "Yes, I do." Elena's voice was calm but firm. She looked around the grand chamber at the representatives of 127 alien species. Many had never supported humanity. Some had been allies. None had treated them as true equals. "For 50 years, humanity has contributed to this confederation. We have shared our technology, provided military support, offered cultural insights, and worked tirelessly to be good galactic citizens." The chamber grew quiet. Something in her voice made even the distracted representatives pay attention. "For 50 years, Elena continued, we have been treated as second-class members of the galaxy. Today we recognize that this relationship is fundamentally unbalanced." She motioned to her team, who began collecting their materials and standing up. "Effective immediately, Earth and all human colonies are withdrawing from the Galactic Confederation." Gasps echoed through the chamber. No species had ever voluntarily left the Confederation in its 3,000-year history. "What is the meaning of this?" demanded High Counselor Zextral, his 3 eyes blinking rapidly. "You cannot simply leave." "Actually, we can," Elena replied. "There is nothing in the Confederation Charter that prevents a voluntary withdrawal. We've studied this carefully." Ambassador Kral of the Zeridians clicked angrily. "This is absurd. How will humans survive without Confederation? Protection and trade?" Elena allowed herself a small smile. "We will manage, Ambassador Kral. We wish you peace and prosperity without our unpredictable influence." With that, she turned and led the human delegation toward the exit. The other delegates watched in stunned silence as the 7 humans walked with dignity across the polished floor. As they reached the door, chaos erupted behind them. Representatives jumped to their feet, shouting questions and demands. Some called for them to stop. Others hurled insults. A few looked genuinely concerned. None of it mattered now. The decision was made. In the hallway outside the council chamber, Commander Jackson let out a long breath. Well, that's done. No going back now. Are you having doubts, Commander? Elena asked as they walked briskly toward their ship. No, ma'am. It was the right call. I'm just thinking about what comes next. The Confederation won't let us go easily. They don't have a choice, said Dr. Patel, their science advisor. By the time they organize any response, our withdrawal will be complete. The real question is how long it takes them to realize how much they depended on us. Their security officer, Captain Rodriguez, was already receiving updates on her comm device. Operation Independence is proceeding on schedule. Human ships are disengaging from joint patrols. Our diplomatic outposts across Confederation space are being evacuated. Trade vessels are returning to human space. Elena nodded. And Project Nova? Dr. Patel smiled. Admiral Chen reports that construction has already begun. Without Confederation restrictions, we can finally build what we've been designing in secret for the last decade. They reach their ship, the Earth diplomatic vessel Unity. It would be the last time this vessel carried human representatives to the Council. As they prepared for departure, Elena looked out the viewport at the gleaming towers of Nexus Prime, the political center of the Confederation. It was beautiful, like most things built by the combined knowledge of 127 species. But humanity would build something better on their own. Ambassador, called the pilot from the cockpit, we're receiving urgent messages from at least 30 different Confederation representatives. They're demanding to speak with you. Elena smiled. Tell them I'm no longer available for consultation. My resignation as ambassador is effective immediately. Set course for Earth. As the Unity lifted off, Elena wondered how long it would take for the Confederation to realize their mistake. Humans had integrated themselves into countless crucial systems across Confederation infrastructure. They had become essential while being treated as inferior. The lesson would be painful for the Confederation, but perhaps necessary. How long until we reach Earth? She asked the pilot. 3 days at standard speed, Ambassador. Former Ambassador, Elena corrected. And push the engines. I want to get home as soon as possible. We have a lot of work to do. As the Unity broke atmosphere and prepared to jump to faster-than-light travel, alerts were already spreading throughout the Confederation. Humans were leaving. All of them. At once. And the panic was just beginning. 3 weeks had passed since the human delegation walked out of the Grand Galactic Council chamber. The initial shock had turned into a growing crisis that spread across Confederation space like a virus. High Counselor Zextral stared at the empty human seats during yet another emergency meeting. The council chamber, usually a place of order and ceremony, had become a scene of daily arguments and blame. "This is the humans' fault," shouted the Zeridian Ambassador Kral, his insect-like mandibles clicking rapidly. "They abandoned their duties without proper notice. Perhaps if you hadn't called them useful primates, they might still be here," replied Ambassador Lorex of the Gelcorians, whose silver skin reflected the chamber's lights. "We all saw how Ambassador Reyes reacted to your insult." Zexatral raised his hand for silence. "Placing blame does not solve our current problems. Let me summarize the situation." He activated a holographic display in the center of the chamber. "Human ships have disappeared from all joint patrol routes, leaving our borders with the Kresh Empire dangerously undermanned. Human traders are absent from major markets, causing shortages of certain goods. All human diplomatic outposts across Confederation space have been closed and sealed." Ambassador T'Prek of the Eldar, one of the oldest species in the galaxy, spoke, in her slow, deliberate way. "These are inconveniences, not true crises. The humans were helpful but not essential." As if responding to her words, an aide rushed into the chamber and whispered urgently to Zexatral. The High Counselor's 3 eyes widened. "I have just received alarming news," he announced. "The Moldarian banking system is experiencing catastrophic failures." This news silenced even the loudest arguments. The Moldarian system handled 40% of all financial transactions in the Confederation. Its collapse would be devastating. How is this possible? Asked Ambassador Teprek. The Muldarian system has operated flawlessly for centuries. A Muldarian representative stood up, his round face flushed with purple stress colors. We've discovered that the quantum encryption algorithms that protect our system were developed and maintained by human experts. Without their regular updates, the system has become vulnerable to attacks. We're seeing unprecedented breaches. Silence fell over the chamber as the implications sank in. The humans hadn't just contributed visible services like patrols and trade. They had become quietly essential to core Confederation infrastructure. Surely we can replace their expertise, suggested Ambassador Kral. The Zeridians have excellent mathematicians. The Muldarian representative shook his head. The human algorithms are unlike anything we've seen. They combined approaches no one else thought to combine. It could take years to develop alternatives. High Counselor Zexatral sighed heavily. We need to send a delegation to Earth immediately. We must convince the humans to return, at least to maintain critical systems while we adjust. Meanwhile, on Earth, Admiral Kwame Chen stood before a massive holographic display showing human space, Earth, Mars, the outer colonies, and the dozens of space stations that formed humanity's territory. Green lights indicated completed withdrawals. Almost everything was green now. Operation Independence is 97% complete, Admiral, reported his aide, Commander Sato. All military vessels have returned to human space, except for 2 deep exploration ships that will arrive within the week. All diplomatic personnel have been evacuated. Chen nodded, his weathered face showing satisfaction. And Project Nova? Commander Sato switched the display to show Earth orbit, where massive construction was underway. Hundreds of ships and thousands of workers were assembling structures that would have been forbidden under Confederation regulations. Construction is proceeding ahead of schedule. Without Confederation restrictions on AI use, our productivity has increased by 400%. Good, Chen said. And our defenses? All border stations are fully operational. Our new autonomous defense platforms are being deployed as we speak. Any Confederation ship entering human space will be detected. Chen was about to respond when an alert flashed on the display. What's that? A Confederation diplomatic vessel requesting permission to enter Earth orbit, Admiral. They're claiming to carry an official delegation from the Council. Chen smiled slightly. That was faster than I expected. It took only 3 weeks for them to realize they need us. He thought for a moment. Allow them to approach, but escort them with 4 of our new Defender-class ships. Let them see what we've been building. Ambassador Lorex of the Gelcorians led the Confederation delegation. As their ship approached Earth, escorted by 4 sleek, intimidating human vessels unlike any they had seen before, she felt a growing unease. Those ships weren't in any Confederation registry, noted her Eldar colleague, Teprek. The humans have been developing technology they didn't share with us. Or perhaps technology we didn't allow them to develop, Lorex replied. Remember all those regulations we imposed on younger species? Their ship was directed to dock at Luna, base Earth's moon. They had expected to meet with Ambassador Reyes, but instead were greeted by Admiral Kwame Chen, whose military uniform displayed more medals than Lorex could count. Welcome to human space, Chen said formally but without warmth. I understand you wish to discuss our withdrawal from the Confederation. Lorex stepped forward. Admiral Chen, the Council has authorized me to offer certain concessions to entice humanity's return. We can offer a 10% increase in voting power and priority access to 3 new trade routes. Chen's expression didn't change. Ambassador Reyes made our position clear. We're not interested in rejoining as junior partners. Either we have an equal seat at the table or we build our own table. But the Muldarian banking system, started the Muldarian representative urgently, is no longer our concern. Chen finished for him. We've established our own financial network that serves human needs quite effectively. Teprek, the Eldar representative, studied Chen carefully. The Confederation has existed for 3,000 years, Admiral. No species can truly stand alone in this galaxy. You will find isolation difficult. Who said anything about isolation? Chen responded. We're already negotiating independent treaties with 15 species who respect us as equals. The Confederation isn't the only path to cooperation. He gestured toward a viewport, where the delegation could see the massive construction projects in Earth orbit. Besides, we're quite busy building our future. What are those structures? Asked Lorex, unable to hide her curiosity. Chen smiled, but his eyes remained serious. Something that would have been forbidden under Confederation restrictions. Something that will change everything. He turned away from the viewport. Now, unless you're prepared to discuss a completely new relationship based on true equality, I believe our meeting is concluded. As the delegation boarded their ship to leave, empty-handed and increasingly worried, Lorex took one last look at the human constructions. Whatever they were building, they were doing it with remarkable speed and confidence. The council severely underestimated them, she said quietly to Teprek. The ancient Eldar nodded. A mistake we may not have the luxury to repeat. Their ship departed Luna Base, still escorted by the advanced human vessels. Behind them, humanity continued its work, free from Confederation control for the first time in 50 years. And across Confederation space, the first ripples of chaos were growing into waves. 6 months had passed since humanity's dramatic exit from the Galactic Confederation. What began as a political crisis had evolved into something far more serious. The ripple effects were spreading across the galaxy, touching every member species in unexpected ways. On the agricultural world of Araxia Prime, Queen Mother Vixta moved slowly through dying crop fields. Her 6 limbs sank slightly into the soft soil as she examined the withering plants. Around her, worker drones of the Araxian hive mind collected samples and data. How much worse has it gotten? She asked her chief scientist. Production is down, 62% from last year, the scientist replied, his antennae drooping with worry. At this rate, we face widespread famine within 3 months. The Queen Mother touched a dying plant. And we still don't understand why our crop management systems are failing. The systems were optimized with human-designed algorithms, the scientist explained. They required regular updates to adapt to changing conditions. Without those updates, he left the sentence unfinished. Vixta looked up at the sky. And the council still hasn't convinced the humans to return? No, Your Highness. The humans are demanding full equality. Most elder species are refusing. The Queen Mother's compound eyes reflected the dying fields stretching to the horizon. Then perhaps the elder species should visit Araxia Prime and see what their pride is costing us. In the great shipyards of Gelcor, Master Builder Zorax inspected the damaged hull of the starship Distant Explorer. The vessel had returned from hyperspace with severe structural damage. It was the 3rd Gelcorian ship lost or damaged in 2 months. What happened? Demanded Ship Captain Teller, whose blue uniform was still stained with hydraulic fluid from emergency repairs. The navigation calculations were off by 0.003%, Zorax explained, running a scanner over the twisted metal. In normal space, such an error would be meaningless. In hyperspace, it nearly killed my crew, Teller finished. How could our navigational systems be so wrong? Gelcorians have been building ships for millennia. Zorax hesitated before answering. The quantum calculators that processed our final hyperspace equations were human-made. They contained special algorithms that compensated for certain anomalies in hyperspace. Without their regular calibration updates, Teller's face darkened. So this is about the humans leaving? Can't we build our own calculators? We've been trying, Zorax admitted. But the humans combined quantum mathematics with something they call intuitive logic, in ways we don't fully understand. Our best scientists say it could take decades to reverse engineer. Teller looked at his damaged ship. We don't have decades. The Shipping Guild has already suspended 30% of deep space routes because they're too dangerous without proper navigation. Zorax nodded grimly. The Council needs to understand. This isn't about politics anymore. This is about survival. On Nexus, prime capital of the Confederation, an emergency council session had been called. The chamber was tense as representatives from all 126 remaining species gathered to hear a special report. High Counselor Zexatral looked exhausted. The past 6 months had aged him visibly. "I call this emergency session to order," he announced. "We face multiple crises that can no longer be addressed separately. I have asked Elder T'Prek of the Eldar to present her analysis." T'Prek, one of the oldest and wisest beings in the galaxy, moved slowly to the center of the chamber. Although her species was ancient, she had been one of the few to advocate for human equality from the beginning. "Fellow representatives," she began, her voice surprisingly strong for her age, "I have completed a comprehensive study of the impact of human withdrawal on our Confederation. The results are troubling." She activated a holographic display showing hundreds of red dots spreading across a map of Confederation space. Each red marker represents a system, technology, or infrastructure experiencing significant failure or degradation since the human departure. Banking, agriculture, navigation, communication, medicine, all affected. Murmurs spread through the chamber as representatives recognized problems affecting their own worlds. "How could one species cause so much disruption?" demanded Ambassador Kral of the Xeridians. "They were only part of the Confederation for 50 years. T'Prek fixed her ancient eyes on him. "That is precisely the question I sought to answer." She changed the display to show a complex network of connections. Humans integrated themselves into virtually every aspect of Confederation infrastructure, often in roles that seemed minor, but were actually crucial. She highlighted several nodes in the network. They applied their unique thinking to problems we had accepted as unsolvable. They connected systems we had always kept separate. They found efficiencies where we saw none. "And we let them?" asked a representative from the back. "We didn't notice," T'Prek replied simply. "Because they never boasted about it. While we debated their worthiness, they quietly became essential." The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. "There's more," T'Prek continued. "Our intelligence reports that the Kresh Empire is mobilizing along our eastern borders. Without human tactical support, our military analysts predict we cannot effectively counter a major Kresh offensive." The silence deepened into dread. The Kresh were warlike and expansionist, held in check for centuries only by Confederation defensive capabilities. "What about the humans?" asked Ambassador Lorex of the Gelcorians. "What have they been doing these 6 months?" T'Prek changed the display again, showing images captured by Confederation scout ships. They revealed massive construction in human space, advanced new vessels, and thriving colonies. Free from our restrictions on AI development and quantum technology, humanity is advancing at an unprecedented pace. They have established independent trade with 17 non-Confederation species. Their economy is growing, while ours falters. She zoomed in on one particular image. A massive ring-shaped structure being built in Earth orbit. Our scientists cannot determine what this is, but its scale suggests a project of tremendous ambition. Something that would have been impossible under our regulations. High Counselor Zextral stepped forward. "Thank you, Elder T'Prek. The situation is clear. We must convince humanity to rejoin the Confederation, or at least to provide assistance with the systems they helped create." "And how do we do that?" asked Ambassador Kral. "They've rejected all our previous offers. We've never offered what they truly wanted," T'Prek said quietly. "Equal status, equal voice, equal respect." The chamber erupted into arguments. Many elder species were outraged at the suggestion. Some younger species voiced support. The debate grew heated. Above the chaos, a new alert flashed on the chamber's main display. Zexatral called for order as he read the message. "We have just received troubling news," he announced, his voice cutting through the noise. "The Kresh Empire has launched an attack on the Tiberian systems. Our border defenses are reporting heavy losses." The chamber fell silent once more. Without human military advisors and their specialized combat drones, Zextral didn't need to finish the thought. Everyone understood the implications. Elder T'Prek looked around at the shocked faces of the representatives. "Perhaps now," she said softly, "we're ready to reconsider what equality truly means." As the council descended into urgent discussions about the Kresh attack, T'Prek gazed at the image of the mysterious human construction project. Whatever the humans were building, she suspected it would change the galaxy forever, and she wondered if the Confederation would survive long enough to see it completed. One standard year had passed since humanity walked out of the Grand Galactic Council. What began as a political statement had evolved into a galactic crisis, and now, a full-scale war. On the bridge of the Confederation flagship Eternal Light, Admiral Vexer of the Gelcorians watched in horror as another defensive line collapsed. The main view screen showed Kresh warships swarming through the gap, heading toward the inner systems of Tiberian space. "Pull back the 7th Fleet," he ordered, his silver skin dull with exhaustion. "We can't hold that position." His second-in-command looked up from a tactical display. "If we retreat, the Kresh will capture the dilithium mining stations in the Tiberian belt. That's 40% of our fleet's fuel supply." Admiral Vexer knew this. He also knew they had no choice. "The stations are already lost. Save our ships. We'll need them to defend the civilian worlds." As orders were relayed, the Admiral moved to a private communication room. The High Council was waiting for his report. When the connection established, he faced the grim expressions of High Counselor Zextral and 5 senior representatives. "The situation is worse than expected," Vexer reported without preamble. "We've lost the outer defenses of the Tiberian systems. The mining belt will fall within hours. Refugee ships are already fleeing the colony worlds." "How many casualties?" asked Elder T'Prek, her ancient face lined with sorrow. "At least 3 million Tiberians have been displaced. Military losses exceed 40% of our deployed forces." The silence that followed was heavy with shock and grief. "How could this happen?" Counselor Zextral finally asked. "The Confederation fleet has contained the Kresh for centuries." Admiral Vexer's expression hardened. "With human help. Their tactical systems predicted Kresh strategies with 94% accuracy. Their combat drones could operate in environments no other species could manage. Their soldiers—" He paused. "Their soldiers were the only ones who could match Kresh ferocity." Ambassador Kral of the Zeridians spoke next, his mandibles clicking nervously. "Our analysts predict the Kresh will use Tiberian resources to launch deeper attacks into Confederation space. We could be looking at a galaxy-wide war." "Then we have no choice," Elder T'Prek said firmly. "We must approach the humans again." "We've tried 3 times, Kral objected. "They refuse anything less than full equality." "Then perhaps," said T'Prek, "it is time we offered exactly that." In the Oval Office of the White House on Earth, President Sophia Wright studied reports from across human space. The past year had transformed humanity's position in the galaxy. Free from Confederation restrictions, human innovation had exploded across every field. Her chief science advisor, Dr. Patel, was presenting the latest breakthrough. The quantum gateway is 76% complete. Once operational, it will open travel to previously unreachable parts of the galaxy. The energy requirements are massive, but our new fusion technology can handle it. President Wright nodded. She had been elected 3 months earlier on a platform of bold independence and innovation. So far, the results had exceeded all expectations. Her security chief, General Rodriguez, entered the room with an urgent expression. "Madam President, we've detected a Confederation diplomatic vessel approaching Earth orbit. They're broadcasting an emergency request for landing." Wright raised an eyebrow. "Another delegation? This would be the 4th. "This one's different," Rodriguez replied. "It includes the High Counselor himself and representatives from 12 of the most influential species. They're requesting to meet with you personally." Wright considered this news. "Very well. Direct them to Luna Base. I'll meet them there in 3 hours." As Rodriguez left to relay the orders, she turned to her advisors. "Opinions?" Admiral Chen, who had been monitoring the Kresh conflict, spoke first. "The Tiberian systems have fallen. The Confederation fleet is in disarray. They're desperate." "Good," said Wright. "Desperation often leads to clarity. Prepare my shuttle." Luna. Base had changed dramatically in the year since the Confederation's last visit. What had been a simple meeting facility was now a gleaming complex of advanced architecture and technology. High Counselor Zextral and his delegation were escorted through halls where humans worked alongside sophisticated AI interfaces that would have been strictly forbidden under Confederation regulations. They were led to a conference room with a spectacular view of Earth and the massive ring structure being built in orbit. The mysterious project was now clearly taking the shape of some kind of gateway. President Wright entered with a small team of advisors, including Admiral Chen and former Ambassador Reyes, now Director of the Human Diplomatic Corps. High Counselor, Wright greeted formally. This is an unexpected visit. Zextral's three eyes showed signs of strain. President Wright, I come with the full authority of the Galactic Council. The situation is grave. The Kresh Empire has captured the Tiberian systems and is preparing for further invasion. Millions of refugees are fleeing, and our defensive capabilities are failing. Wright nodded calmly. We've been monitoring the situation. The Kresh have been expanding aggressively since we withdrew our support from your borders. We need humanity's help, Zextral stated plainly. The Council has voted unanimously to offer Earth and all human colonies full and equal membership in the Confederation, equal voting rights, equal representation, and reparations for past oversights. Elena Reyes, who had led the walkout a year ago, exchanged glances with Admiral Chen. This was what they had demanded from the beginning. President Wright studied the alien delegation carefully before responding. Your offer comes late, High Counselor. We're no longer interested in Confederation membership. The aliens looked shocked. Zextral's translator struggled to convey his confusion. But this is what humanity wanted. A year ago, yes, Wright agreed. But circumstances have changed. We have established our own networks, our own alliances. We are on the verge of technological breakthroughs that your regulations would have prevented for decades. She gestured to the window and the massive gateway, visible in Earth orbit. We're charting our own path now. Ambassador Krall stepped forward angrily. Do you not care about the millions suffering from the Kresh invasion? Without your help, billions more will die. Of course we care, Wright replied sharply. But joining a confederation that only offered us equality when faced with destruction is not the answer. She walked closer to the window, looking at Earth and the stars beyond. However, we are concerned about the Kresh situation. They've always been expansionist, and they won't stop with Confederation worlds. Wright turned back to face the delegation. We'll consider an alliance of equals to address the threat. Not as members of your confederation, but as independent partners with our own terms. Zextral looked bewildered. An alliance? But the Confederation has always... The Confederation is failing. Wright interrupted. You need a new approach. And you need us more than we need you, Krall chittered angrily. This is outrageous. What makes humans think they can stand against the Kresh when the entire Confederation couldn't? President Wright merely smiled and activated a holographic display. It showed hundreds of advanced human vessels being deployed from shipyards throughout human space. Ships unlike anything the Confederation had ever developed. Because in 12 months of freedom, she said calmly, we've accomplished more than in 50 years of being held back. The aliens stared at the display, finally understanding the new reality. Humanity hadn't just withdrawn from the Confederation, they had surpassed it. Elder Teprek, who had been silent until now, stepped forward to study the display more closely. If we agree to your terms, she asked softly, how soon could you help? Stop the Kresh advance? President Wright looked to Admiral Chen, who nodded confidently. The human defense fleet could deploy immediately, Wright answered. But first, we have some conditions to discuss. As the delegation began urgent negotiations outside the window, construction continued on the quantum gateway. Whatever the outcome of these talks, one thing was clear. Humanity would never again accept a subordinate role in galactic affairs. The Treaty of New Terra was signed 2 weeks after the emergency meeting at Luna Base. It established the Human Confederation Alliance as a partnership between independent powers rather than the subordinate relationship of the past. President. Wright watched as High Counselor Zextral pressed his 3-fingered hand to the DNA scanner, finalizing the Confederation's commitment. She then did the same, feeling the slight tingle as the scanner read her genetic code. "It is done," announced Elena Reyes, now serving as director of the Human Diplomatic Corps. For the first time in history, humanity and the Confederation stand as true equals. The signing ceremony took place aboard the human flagship Defiance, a vessel so advanced that many Confederation representatives still couldn't understand how it functioned. The ship's bridge had been converted into a diplomatic hall for the occasion, with representatives from both human space and the Confederation in attendance. Sexatral addressed the gathering. "This alliance comes at a critical moment. The Kresh. Advance has claimed 12 systems beyond Tiberian space. Their fleets grow stronger with each conquest." He looked directly at President Wright. "We must act quickly." Wright nodded. "Admiral Chen will present our joint strategy." Admiral Kwame Chen stepped forward, activating a large holographic display. It showed Kresh-occupied territory in red, spreading like a bloodstain across the galactic map. "The Kresh have expanded rapidly because they've encountered minimal resistance," Chen explained. "Confederation forces have been unable to coordinate effectively without our tactical systems. That changes today." He expanded a section of the map. "We will deploy the Human Defense Fleet alongside Confederation forces here, at the Vega Corridor. The Kresh must pass through this region to reach the core systems." A Confederation admiral spoke up. "With respect, that's exactly where we attempted to stop them 3 months ago. We lost 40% of our ships." Chen smiled slightly. "You didn't have these." He pressed a control, and the hologram showed a new type of small, sleek vessel. "Autonomous combat units with our latest AI systems. Each one can outmaneuver any Kresh ship." "AI-controlled ships?" gasped an elder representative. "That's forbidden under Confederation law." "But not under our laws," Chen replied calmly. "And according to our new treaty, human forces operate under human protocols." President Wright stepped in before an argument could develop. "This is precisely why an alliance works better than membership. We each bring different strengths and different approaches. Together we are stronger than either could be alone." High Counselor Zextral nodded reluctantly. "The treaty is clear. We have agreed to respect human methods, just as humans have agreed to help defend Confederation space." "Then it's settled," said Admiral Chen. "We launch the counteroffensive in 3 days." The battle for the Tiberian systems became the largest military engagement in recent galactic history. For the first time, human and Confederation forces fought side by side as equals, rather than with humans in supporting roles. Admiral Chen commanded the joint fleet from the bridge of the Defiance. Around him, both human officers and Confederation liaisons monitored the complex battle unfolding across an entire star system. "Kresh destroyers approaching from Vector 3, reported a Gelcorian tactical officer. "Their numbers are greater than anticipated." Chen studied the holographic battlefield. "Deploy squadrons 8 through 12. Activate the Solomon Protocol." Across space, hundreds of autonomous human combat units swarmed toward the Kresh formation. They moved in patterns that seemed random, but were actually calculated by advanced AI systems to be unpredictable to enemy targeting computers. The Kresh ships opened fire, but the human vessels demonstrated a new shield technology that could withstand their energy weapons. The autonomous units darted between enemy ships, firing precision weapons at vulnerable points. "It's working," said Admiral Vexer of the Gelcorians, watching in amazement. "The Kresh formation is breaking apart." "Now," ordered Chen, "Confederation cruisers, move in and target their command ships. Our units will provide cover." The larger Confederation vessels, protected by the human defense swarm, advanced into positions that would have been suicide just days earlier. There, heavy weapons pounded the exposed Kresh command ships. On a secondary communication channel, Elena Reyes was meeting with representatives from multiple Confederation species in another section of the Defiance. Many had come to observe the battle and the new alliance in action. "Your ships are incredible," admitted a Zeridian engineer. "How did you develop such advanced technology in just 1 year?" "We were never advancing slowly," Reyes explained. "You were actively slowing us down with your restrictions and regulations. What you're seeing now is humanity's natural pace." The ship shuddered slightly as a distant explosion registered on the shields. "But our regulations exist for good reasons," argued an elder representative. "Some technologies are too dangerous to develop without careful oversight." Reyes smiled diplomatically. "Perhaps. But treating every new species as children needing restraints isn't oversight, it's control. And humans don't respond well to being controlled." Their conversation was interrupted by an excited communication from the bridge. "Director Reyes, Admiral Chen requests everyone's presence. The Kresh flagship has been disabled." When Reyes and the representatives reached the bridge, the main screen showed an enormous Kresh warship, dark and drifting. Around it, smaller Kresh vessels were either retreating or surrendering, something no one had seen the warlike species do before. "We've opened communication with their war leader," Admiral Chen informed them. "This could be a turning point." The screen changed to show a Kresh commander, his red-scaled face rigid with controlled fury. "Human Admiral," he growled through the translator, "your ships fight like nothing we have encountered. How did the Confederation spawn such warriors?" "We are not of the Confederation," Chen replied. "We are human, fighting alongside the Confederation as allies." The Kresh commander's eyes narrowed. "Humans. I have heard legends of your kind from border skirmishes. They said you fought with both machine precision and animal ferocity." He bared his teeth. The legends were true. "Will you surrender your forces?" Chen asked directly. "Kresh do not surrender," the commander snarled, then paused. "But we can recognize superior strength. I offer combat pause to discuss terms." As the communication ended, excited chatter broke out across the bridge. No one had expected the Kresh to agree to negotiations. Gelkorian Admiral Vexor approached Chen. "In a lifetime of military service, I've never seen the Kresh retreat. This is remarkable." "Don't celebrate yet," Chen cautioned. "The Kresh respect strength above all. We've surprised them today, but they'll adapt. This war isn't over." "Even so," said Elder Teprek, who had been quietly observing. "You've accomplished, in one battle, what the Confederation couldn't in months of fighting." Teprek moved to stand beside Admiral Chen at the main view screen, watching as Confederation ships began the process of reclaiming the Tiberian systems. "We've been viewing humans as children needing guidance," she said thoughtfully. "When perhaps they were adults being deliberately infantilized." Chen considered her words. "It's a common mistake when dealing with something new. You assume it's primitive until proven otherwise." He looked around at his bridge, where humans and aliens now worked side by side. "Hopefully, we've provided that proof." As repair teams began assessing the damage and medical ships rushed to help displaced Tiberians, the first day of the new Human Confederation alliance came to a close. The Kresh had been pushed back, but everyone knew this was just the beginning. The real test of the alliance was yet to come. 2 years had passed since humanity walked out of the Grand Galactic Council chamber. What began as a political protest had transformed the galaxy in ways no one could have predicted. In the newly constructed Hall of Cooperation on Nexus Prime, the inaugural session of the Interstellar Cooperative was about to begin. Unlike the old Confederation Council chamber with its hierarchical arrangement, this hall was designed as a perfect circle. All seats were positioned at the same height, with no species given physical prominence over others. Elena Reyes, who had once led the human walkout, now returned to the same planet as one of 5 elected directors of the new cooperative. She stood at the entrance, taking a moment to appreciate how much had changed. "Nervous?" asked Admiral Chen, now serving as Earth's military representative. "Not nervous," Reyes replied. "Just thinking about the last time I was here. When I walked out, I never imagined I would return to help build something better." Inside the hall, representatives from 137 spacefaring species were taking their seats. The 126 former Confederation members had been joined by 11 independent species that had previously avoided the Confederation but were willing to join the more equitable cooperative. The most surprising addition was a Kresh delegation. After the decisive battle at the Tiberian systems, the peace negotiations had revealed something unexpected. The Kresh had always viewed the Confederation's treatment of younger species as weakness, not wisdom. When humanity demonstrated both strength and a demand for respect, the Kresh found it easier to understand. The resulting peace treaty was the first the warlike species had ever signed voluntarily. High seats in the old council had been replaced by a rotating directorship of 5 elected leaders. Humanity held one seat, alongside representatives from the Gelcorians, the Eldar, the Araxians, and most surprisingly, the Kresh. As Reyes took her place at the director's platform, she caught the eye of former High Counselor Zextral, now serving as a regular representative. He nodded respectfully, acknowledging how far they had come. "I call to order the inaugural session of the Interstellar Cooperative," announced Elder Teprek, who had been chosen to open the proceedings due to her role in bridging the gap between the old system and the new. Today marks a new chapter in galactic history. The chamber quieted as Reyes stepped forward to deliver the opening address. All eyes, whether they were singular, compound, or in clusters of 3 or more, focused on the human who had changed everything. 2 years ago, I stood in a chamber on this planet and announced humanity's withdrawal from the Galactic Confederation, she began. I did so because we were undervalued and constrained by a system that ranked species rather than respecting them. She looked around the circular hall, meeting the gazes of beings from across the galaxy. Today, I return not because humans need you, but because genuine cooperation between equals benefits everyone. The crisis of our departure revealed not just how much we contributed, but how much potential was being wasted by the old system. Reyes gestured to the various technologies and innovations now visible throughout the chamber, many of them human-designed, but improved through collaborative efforts with other species. In the past 2 years, we've seen what true cooperation can achieve. The Quantum Gateway Network has connected 17 systems previously unreachable by conventional travel. The new agricultural algorithms developed jointly by humans and Araxians have ended food shortages on dozens of worlds. The combined medical knowledge of 7 species has cured diseases that plagued our civilizations for centuries. She paused, letting her words sink in. This is what happens when we treat each other as equals. This is what happens when innovation is encouraged rather than controlled. This is what happens when we build bridges instead of hierarchies. The speech was met with standing applause from most delegates. Even some who had once strongly opposed human equality now acknowledged the benefits of the new system. As the formal session continued, Reyes found herself in a conversation with the Eldar representative, once one of humanity's strongest critics. "Must ask you something, Director Reyes," the ancient being said quietly. "Was the walkout a calculated move to force the Confederation to recognize human value? Did you anticipate these outcomes?" Reyes smiled enigmatically. "Let's just say humans are better at long-term strategy than we were given credit for. Sometimes you have to leave the table to change the game." The Eldar's eyes showed a new respect. "I believe we will continue learning from each other for generations to come." That evening, a celebration was held on a vast observation deck overlooking the capital city. Representatives from all species mingled freely, without the formal separations. That had once been tradition. President Right of Earth stood with Admiral Chen and Director Reyes watching the diverse gathering. 2 years ago, we were fighting for a seat at their table, Wright reflected. Now we've helped build a better table. Reyes nodded. And the results speak for themselves. She gestured to various groups engaged in animated conversation throughout the hall. In one corner, human engineers were discussing ship designs with Gelcorian builders, creating vessels that combined the best of both traditions. Nearby, a team of human and Araxian scientists were showing holographic models of new agricultural systems that were increasing food production across the galaxy. Even the Kresh, once the most feared warriors in the galaxy, were engaged in discussions about joint security protocols, their strength now channeled into protection rather than conquest. "There's still much to do," Admiral Chen commented. "Some of the elder species remain uncomfortable with the pace of change." "They'll adapt," Wright said confidently. "The benefits are too obvious to ignore. And we're not pushing for dominance, just equality. Through the large viewport, they could see a massive construction project in orbit around Nexus Prime, a quantum gateway hub based on the design humanity had first built in Earth orbit. When completed, it would connect the galactic core to regions previously unreachable. That's the true victory, Reyes said, pointing to the gateway. Not just that our innovation is now accepted, but that it's being shared. What we build now, we build for everyone. As the celebration continued, a message arrived from Earth. The flagship of the new cooperative exploratory fleet, a joint human Gelcorian vessel named Horizon, had successfully completed its first mission. It had traveled through the Earth Gateway to a previously unexplored region of the galaxy and made contact with 2 new intelligent species. The message ended with words that summed up the new spirit of the interstellar cooperative. We have invited them to join us as equals in exploring the universe. They have accepted. President Wright shared the news with the gathering, and a cheer went up that transcended species and language. In that moment, the final transformation was complete. The galaxy had moved from hierarchy to partnership, from control to cooperation, from suspicion to trust, and it had all begun because humans had walked out. And the galaxy had panicked, then changed, then grown. As Director Reyes looked out at the stars beyond the gateway, she thought about how sometimes the bravest thing you can do is to walk away from a bad situation. And sometimes, if you're lucky and determined, you get to walk back into a better one that you helped create. The end.